Hi, my name is William Negley. I'm the founder and CEO of SoundOff. Thank you so much for tuning in for our annual event, SoundOff Fast Forward. Today, you're going to hear about how SoundOff is working to scale our organization through a number of exciting partnerships, organizational hires, and new ways of doing business to ultimately support more of those who have served on their terms.
Good evening, everyone. My name is James Patrick. I deployed as a Green Beret team leader until 2009 and am now a technology executive. Today, though, I stand before you proudly as the chairman of the board of SoundOff. And it is an absolute pleasure to welcome you to our 5th annual fundraiser in Military City, USA. Happy Veterans Day to you all. The eve of 2024 finds us 6 months to a few years past the end of COVID, depending on how you define the end. Yet our collective national consciousness still thinks about, and our news outlets still report on the long-term impacts of the global pandemic. Mental health and how individuals cope with the adversity and stress are at the top of that list. From the silent struggle of the airline industry to children in crisis surging into hospital ERs, to teenage suicides, to deadly mass shootings, we can find multiple examples in our society of the effects of isolation and feelings of despair. SoundOff was founded nearly a decade ago, well before the pandemic, to address these challenges. Those of seeking mental health support easily, quickly, and most important of all, anonymously, for one particular community, veterans and service members. SoundOff uniquely addresses some of the challenges this community faces when seeking support. It's been one hell of a journey so far, in no small part to many of you in this room. And I'd like to take a moment to recognize you, our supporters and donors who make it possible for us to deliver much-needed care every single day. So please, a round of applause and thank you. I'd also like to give kudos to our small but mighty team. Elizabeth Reed, who runs our operations and keeps William on track. Our developers in Brazil, and please excuse the gringo pronunciations, Natalia de Ribas, Arthur Bertames, and Bruno Battistotti, and of course, William Negley. I'd like to also give a warm welcome to the 2 new family members of SoundOff, Cameron Brumette, our Major Gifts Officer, and Alex Balber, our Chief Growth Officer. So welcome. Their addition to the team is a testament to our continued success with your help and the fact that we have grown deliberately and with fiscal responsibility. This evening, you'll hear from William and the rest of our speakers who will touch upon themes of scale, progress, and increased impact. They will incorporate incredibly touching and personal stories to help highlight the problem. But they will inevitably come back to the reality that SoundOff's tremendous hard work and your generous support has begun to pay off. To use technology startup terminology, we have validated product market fit and our go-to-market strategy. Now it's time for growth and expansion into the broader military community. We are working every day to broaden that support, and William will share how we are achieving this and how you can help. So please, enjoy your evening, and thank you for spending this with us.
Good evening. I asked James to allow me to introduce the young men that will be posting the color guard and singing the national anthem. I just wanted to give a little context on why we have some 8th graders doing that here at this event. I graduated from San Antonio Academy in 1998, 25 years ago. And for anybody in this room who knows the Academy and the culture and the values that it instills, it was a deeply meaningful place to me and really ultimately leading me on to my life of professional service. So it just felt very appropriate and meaningful to me to have the Academy boys with us this evening, posting the color guard and singing the national anthem. So with that, I will ask everyone to stand and to remain standing for the national anthem.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what surrounding we hailed and the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
I now have the pleasure of introducing our chaplain this evening, who will give our convocation. For those of you who have served or have been in overseas traumatic environments, you can appreciate the need to believe in something higher and a higher purpose, whether it's your teammate to the right or left, a God, Yahweh, whatever you want to say. So having a chaplain here with us who has spent time serving in many difficult places is an honor, and we're very truly blessed to have him here today. Chaplain Bob Sieper served 1 year in Charlie Company, 58th Infantry, a reconnaissance patrol along the Czech-German border many years ago, in early 1960s. In 1969 and 1970, he served in 5th Special Forces Group, at the time called MAC-VSOG, an acronym, basically the Green Berets during Vietnam. He patrolled in the introduction of the Ho Chi Minh Trail and was a weapons and sniper duties. Today, though, he serves as a chaplain for Vet Trip, a nonprofit focused on veterans having pain resulting from trauma. So I appreciate your service, chaplain, and please come up.
I am not a military chaplain. I'm a chaplain with the International Fraternity of Chaplains, actually International Fellowship of Chaplains. Got out of the service and saw a need to start working with veterans and first responders. That's what I do now. A job that I love because I get to see some folks understand what it's all about. If you'd like, let me say a quick prayer over the food and we'll get going. Father, we give thanks to you, our true bread of life. As we gather tonight, we thank you for the men and women that step forward and willingly sacrifice their service and even their life to keep this country free. As we enjoy this meal, let us remember those that served and let us pledge ourselves to honor their sacrifice. Amen.
So for the next 10, 15 minutes, I'm going to give a little bit of the background information, most recent data on veteran suicide, veteran service member suicide, and exactly how Sound Off fits into the very broad space addressing that challenge. So this is a number many of you are likely familiar with. The VA releases an annual veteran suicide report each year. You may have heard 22 a day. That came out circa 2011. There's quite frankly a lot of charged, not exactly politics, but the numbers in this space become complicated. This, the most recent data out reflecting 2020 was 16.8 per day. Just to give you a few data points, drilling into it a little more. 16.8 reflects approximately 60% higher rate than an age, sex-adjusted civilian population. Not to get into statistics, which I only halfway understand, but you need to age and sex adjust when you're comparing these populations because the military is disproportionately young and male, which has a higher suicide rate in the civilian population. But as I mentioned, there's the numbers in this are challenged. There are organizations that challenge the VA's numbers. In particular, America's Warrior Partnership did a study that they released about, or at least the first version of it released a year ago, where they looked at not only potentially just straight missed veteran suicides that they were undercounting, but also recognizing that they were not counting deaths that were tied to things like overdose that we would not count as a suicide per se, but one might reasonably say is connected to service or mental health challenges related to service. Finally, just in the last several months, a study came out actually out of a professor at UTSA that looked at the trend from 2006 to 2020. And as it shows, 15% growth year over year among those veterans who had a TBI, 14% among those who had not, and essentially flat for the civilian population. This is a lot of numbers. I want to give you one quote that to me just like really paraphrases this whole thing. A current combatant commander that we work with very closely said, "We're spending more money than we've ever spent on this problem and the numbers are going the wrong way." Whatever number you want to pick, Sound Off would strongly contend that this is really a symptom of a number of structural problems in how we support the veteran mental health, the veteran service member community. And the problem that we are laser focused on is this right here. This is the whole reason Sound Off exists. The exact statistic is that 47% of post 9/11 veterans and service members who have deployed, who meet the definition of major depression or PTSD, have not sought help in the last year. I just really need to emphasize this is why we're in the room, right? We have lots of resources available, lots of good funding, but half of the people who are struggling are actively choosing not to seek help. So the question as we reframe this whole discussion is how is it that we spend billions of dollars a year on this problem, and half of the people who need what we're giving away for free will not walk in the door? The answer is that we do not structure help in a way that is culturally, bureaucratically, psychologically accessible to the men and women who need it. Again, this is a very well-researched space. You know, I think many who have served know all of this sort of intuitively, but we don't need to rely on intuition. There's very good DoD research on who doesn't seek help and why they do not seek help. To me, this quote really paraphrases a core issue for a segment of this population. This quotation came from a study that was done with SOCOM and the American Association of Suicidology. This quote was taken from the family member of a special operations service member who died by suicide. I want to emphasize that we are not alone in focusing on stigma as a problem. The Secretary of Defense on September 26th this year, so just a month ago, released this memo laying out 5 core recommendations, actions that were going to be taken to prevent service member suicide. And the third recommendation was basically precisely focused on what we do. So we are not alone in recognizing this problem. This is accepted and acknowledged as a problem. Finally, I just want to provide, I'm going to talk about what we call trust in a moment. The reluctance among some to be willing to engage with the clinician. But I wanted to share a quote from a current SEAL officer. I was in Coronado at Naval Special Warfare Command several months ago, and the SEAL officer said something to me that I'd never heard it this way and I just found very profound. And I just want to be very clear. I'm not, of course, saying this is correct or right. I am saying that this is reality for some of these people who are considering seeking support. And we cannot let that act as a barrier to them ultimately being prepared to engage with care. And so Sound Off really wraps up these barriers into 4 core buckets. Geography, I live too far away. Bureaucracy, it takes too long, it's too complicated, it's too expensive. What I alluded to, trust, I don't want to talk to a doctor. I don't want to talk to a doctor and I don't want to take the meds. And again, finally, certainly most significantly, a personal and professional desire for anonymity. And we don't typically talk about that way. What we talk about is stigma. But it is worth for a moment just breaking stigma apart into what we would say is 2 different elements. Cultural stigmatization, I don't want friends, family, community to know that I am seeking help, and concern of professional blowback. 2 separate things, both real or certainly at minimum perceived to be real. And so this is where Sound Off enters the picture. Sound Off is an IT platform that allows veterans and service members the ability to engage in ongoing clinical or peer support while maintaining complete anonymity. We assign the veteran or service member a unique username. They come back to the platform engaging with that same username and hence maintain their anonymity. So I'll show you briefly what this looks like. Here you're seeing a clinician fully onboarded onto our platform and a person seeking help who's never touched our system before. We ask them for a password and a PIN. Again, we don't have their name, email, or phone number. We get the PIN just as an additional layer of security. And now we're into the whole magic behind Sound Off here. We've assigned them the username White Fox. And now we're into our 3 core channels of support. Clara is a clinically validated artificial intelligence chatbot. We have our peer support and our clinical support. Here we're going to come through and say that I served with Naval Special Warfare. For clinical support, we have to know what state that individual is in. So we're going to say I'm in Texas. And now we're dropped into our list of clinicians that we're able to access. So we're going to come in and say we want to talk to Billy Crystal. We go through our informed consent. Always shout out to Dykema in the back for their tremendous support provided to our organization. And we are now dropped into an end-to-end encrypted chat conversation between Billy Crystal and White Fox. So White Fox, this is not a crisis line. Billy Crystal's not on standby. White Fox is going to come in and say, hey, can we talk Thursday or Friday next week? And Billy Crystal's going to come in and say, sure, let's talk Thursday at 5. And then what you're going to see is Billy Crystal's going to hit that little phone icon in the top right-hand corner, and that's going to trigger a VoIP call internal to the application so they're now able to have a telephonic session without having to have the identifying information of that individual whatsoever. So we wrap up our call. We go through a series of surveys that Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute helped us develop, and we're going to schedule our appointment for the same time next week. So let's return to those core barriers that we were seeking to address. Geography. The only geographic limitation is that the clinician is licensed in the state that the veteran or service member's in. We handle that at an engineering level. If that clinician's licensed in multiple states, we distribute appropriately. Peer supporters can be anywhere. Bureaucracy, you've just seen the entire experience of somebody seeking help. Trust. We allow them to engage with a screened and trained peer or a clinician, or both. And what's better is that that peer, if that is where they feel safe, can in effect act as a Trojan horse. They can start there, feel safe there, and then a week, a month, 6 months later, when they say, I really need to talk to a professional, they don't need to go find another organization, they hit a button and they can talk to a clinician. And finally, and why I started this foundation to begin with, and where we stand differentiated, true, uncompromising anonymity. I like to say the police could kick down my door and say, tell me who White Fox is, and my answer would be, I literally cannot answer that question. I can point you to the clinician or the peer and what that individual has chosen to disclose to them, but I'm a dry hole. So a couple of last data points here, a couple things to highlight. First and foremost, we as an organization are not competing with anybody. If someone is willing to go to the VA, DoD, Cohen Network, Headstrong, anywhere else, I want them doing that. Our target audience is the 47% that is definitionally not going to do that. Our work has been recognized by the VA, in particular in their Mission Daybreak Suicide Prevention Challenge. We were very proud and excited to have that recognition. And today we're ready to announce that in the last 2 years, we've had over 1,000 people coming to Sound Off seeking support. Okay, so now this is the first year we're doing an auction, which we're very excited about. And this item is up only because Jeremy may not even know this, that I've hooked him into a weekend at our ranch on the coast where another board member is going to be, and former agency colleague of mine, is going to be doing some escape and evasion training on the edge of a duck hunting weekend. So I'm not saying that we're going to turn you into a Delta Force operator or a CIA officer, but I can tell you that hopefully there will be good duck hunting, and at a minimum there will be bourbon and steak flowing. So if you're interested, you'll get a text message, which is another new thing that we're introducing, and I hope you'll join us. So fast forward. The next 10, 15 minutes is going to be a discussion of how we are growing and scaling this organization. And before I do that, I just want to spend a few minutes talking about where we've come from. I was speaking with my cousin, Kate Fitzsimmons, about a week ago, and I was alluding to, quote unquote, a decade. And she said, has it been that long? And I said, yeah, it actually has. So I want to lay out just a little bit of history real quick because it'll contextualize, again, sort of where we've come from and where we're going. So as I referenced earlier, 2011 is when we started to hear that 22 veteran suicide a day number. That's when that number started to permeate. At the time, I was an officer in the Central Intelligence Agency, and it again just seemed intuitive to me that there was this fundamental flaw in how we were doing this, right? That my colleagues were not going to seek support. So I came back from Afghanistan in 2013, not having done anything about this, because I said, it's such an obvious answer, somebody else is going to do this. They hadn't. And so I set about to launch this organization in October 2014. And we had a bunch of research, legal analysis, board building, all of the above. And we're excited in January 2016, we needed to raise a bunch of money before we could help anybody because we had to build all of this technology. So January 2016, we secured a $2.65 million deal over 3 years, basically a full 3-year runway. And I said, I don't know what people are complaining about. This fundraising thing is just not that hard. 2 weeks later, this organization entered a essentially systemic level, let's say, scandal. And in January 2017, they pulled their funding. They said, we can't come through on this. So January, that spring, we're saying, okay, let's just try and raise a little bit of money to do a super minimum viable product in the state of Texas. And then June 9th, 2017, my brother-in-law died by suicide. So Bill had retired from Dev Group 127 days earlier. And it was, of course, precisely this issue. As a Tier 1 operator, Bill had meaningfully unlimited access to mental health support. But he was never going to expose himself in a way that he felt would jeopardize his reputation or career. So here, quite literally for years, I've been running around with RAND studies showing people some of the same slides you've seen tonight, and the problem is so insidious, it's going on in my own family, and I don't know it. So with Bill's death comes this meaningful injection of energy and capital that ultimately led to, I jokingly say, the board firing me as chairman to hire me as the first executive director. And we ultimately went live with our very version 1.0 product November 2019 in Texas alone. There's an important organizational shift that occurred. The model at that time was a mistake that, quite frankly, I think many organizations in this space make. We're going to do it all. We're going to recruit all these clinicians, raise all this money to pay clinicians, recruit peers. We're going to do it all. So January 2020, we went into a meeting here in San Antonio with families that you all know well, tasked for basically $1 million for a 1-year outreach budget for one state, Texas. 2 weeks later, COVID hits. We're not raising that $1 million. And so that forced a very fundamental strategic assessment of how we do business. And what I want to share with you that, again, many of you will know, is what we ultimately shared November 2021, which we called Further Together. So what does SoundOff really actually fundamentally do? What do we need to grow and scale? We need more peer supporters. We need more people who are ready to provide peer support. We need more clinical capacity. If somebody comes to the application, we need a clinician, and then we're going to connect them with people seeking help. Further Together, what we launched 2 years ago and has become deeply ingrained in our DNA as an organization, is that we accomplish that through partnership with other organizations. Why am I, to use the prototypical example I use all the time, why am I going to go raise money to support SEALs or Green Berets when I can partner with the SEAL Foundation and Special Forces Charitable Trust, who are doing that all day, every day, and are not going to build what we've built? So we are thrilled to have launched this business model, announced our initial set of partners, and in particular covered all of Special Operations Command. We are not a Special Operations focused foundation, but we launched initially into that community. There's a disproportionate level of philanthropic interest. It's smaller. It was sort of a safer entry point. So last year we talked about Forward Together. We're ready to start scaling. And we shared what we called Star 1, Star 2, Star 3. So Star 1, we developed this sort of plan path when Elizabeth was brought on board to take my jumbled mind and actually put it down in writing. Star 1 was settle things with SOCOM. Star 2 was a bunch of sort of back room, infrastructure building that we needed to get to STAR 3, really meaningfully scaling this organization. And so we came out of last year really ready to start focused on STAR 3, scaling SoundOff. Well, we were and still are, but certainly then we're an even leaner team, right? We had our 3 engineers in Brazil who are wonderful, and Elizabeth and me. So we knew we needed a little more firepower on the team. So we were thrilled to bring Cameron on, who probably every person in this room has spoken to, as our first fully focused fundraising professional. So, I've said many times, I can talk to engineers, I can talk to partners, I can talk to donors, I can't talk to all 3 at the same time. So we love having Cameron come on. But, really, quite frankly, the first meaningful, significant move that we made into a clear demonstration of scaling this organization was hiring Dr. Alex Balber. So Alex spent the last decade at Wounded Warrior Project precisely working in this space. He previously served at NICO, Natural Interpretive Center of Excellence. He has a PhD in brain science, as I'll simplify it down, and is currently a reservist in the Medical Service Corps. There's, quite frankly, I think, nobody better to bring over who has worked in this space as long as Alex has worked in this space with the expertise that Alex has had to help scale this organization. And that is accomplished, again, through partnership, growth through partnership. So we brought Alex on, I forgot to mention a relevant point, August 7th, 2023. So Alex is entering his 4th month, and we're now focused on growth through partnership. So tonight I just want to highlight a few things that we're excited about as sort of initial early indications of that growth and scale across the veteran service member community. So we have a partner that has provided funding to support the entire United States Marine Corps. Now that is funding at a limited level. Thank you. But it means that anyone self-identifying as a Marine, obviously a much larger community than some element of SOCOM, is able to access one of our contract clinicians. We're tremendously excited to have just been accepted into Face the Fight, USAA's consortium of organizations working to combat veteran suicide, and we're excited about the potential for partnership and collaborations with the organizations in that space. And finally, while this remains within SOCOM, I would just highlight as an example of our work with DoD proper that we just have an increasingly close working relationship with Naval Special Warfare. Admiral Davids, the commander of NSW, just put out a letter to the NSW community and families highlighting resources. We were the only one that was not an actual DoD resource, so we're excited about that. So beyond that, as we look towards why did we bring Alex on board, I'm obviously not, and please, Elizabeth, throw something at me if I do this, I'm not going to name organizations that we're in negotiations and discussions with, but I want to give examples of the types of partnerships that we're working on. So nonprofits with clinical capacity, like as in they are employing those clinicians themselves, or funding to support contract clinical capacity. Organizations with state and federal funding to provide clinical capacity. Federal contract, this is a huge opportunity. The Department of Defense spends billions of dollars a year on clinicians through major contractors that are very well positioned to be placed onto our application. Again, we're not taking dollars from any of these people, meaning funding our operations. These are dollars that are already being spent, and we're just bringing them through the application as a way to reach those that are otherwise not going to be helped. Many of you may know to whom I am referring, nonprofits with volunteer clinicians and peers, organizations providing cultural competency, some of which are in San Antonio, training to clinicians and peers, and academic medical centers. So I know this is a super, sort of blurry list, but I can tell you Alex and I are spending a lot of time looking down long lists of basically who do we want to go to next. And we are deep into conversations with some and just starting to bang on the door of the others. But we're excited to have Alex on board and excited about some of the partnerships we're going to be able to announce moving forward. So in that spirit, what we want to announce tonight is our first partnership that I think it's fair to say brings true national scale impact to this challenge, right? And again, sorry to go backwards, but what are we seeking here, right? What do we need here? We need clinical support capacity, we need peer capacity, and we need people seeking help. So tonight, we're thrilled to announce a partnership with NASCAR to be next season. NASCAR is going to be recruiting from their fan base, incentivizing their fan base, veterans from within their fan base, to become peer supporters on Sound Off. So to help make this announcement, we have Tom Bryant, a native of Grand Bay, Alabama, and the Vice President of Racing Operations for NASCAR here with us tonight. Tom was commissioned as an infantry officer and served more than 21 years in the United States Army. He led soldiers from the platoon to the battalion level, including multiple combat tours in Afghanistan and Iraq in both conventional and special operations units. His military awards and decorations include the Defense Meritorious Service Medal, the Bronze Star, and the Joint Service Commendation Medal. Tom and his wife Erin have 2 children, both on active duty. Sarah, who joins us tonight, is an Army nurse, and TJ is in the Air Force Special Warfare community, which we're very proud to support as well. So, Tom. Thanks.
Thank you all for this opportunity to spend the evening with you as we prepare to celebrate Veterans Day. I'm humbled to represent NASCAR in announcing this important partnership that we believe will go a long way toward helping veterans. Moreover, we're excited about the opportunity to push forward this mission, this critical mission that Sound Off has started, and reduce veteran suicide in America. As many of you know, our sport has a long history of supporting veterans. That's one of the things personally that drew me to NASCAR after my military service, in addition to my wife insisting that I immediately get out of the house about a week after I retired. But the NASCAR industry in its earliest days has been closely connected with the men and women in our armed forces. In fact, our CEO and chairman, Jim France, is himself a Vietnam veteran. It's something we take very personally. We're very proud of it. It's very authentic. If you are familiar with the sport at all, we have a platform called NASCAR Salutes that we do every year for about a month of our season, where we spend and focus entirely on supporting our military community and highlighting the service and veterans and those who have committed, sacrificed so much for us. Additionally, if you've ever get the opportunity to go to Charlotte Motor Speedway Memorial Day weekend, and you don't even have to watch the 600 miles of racing that occurs, but just to see what we do, in particular with the special operations community that comes over from Fort Liberty. And we honor 36 fallen service members, and we bring their families in, and we host them for about a week. And it is a really, really special thing. And we take all of the NASCAR stuff and the drivers' names off of those vehicles, and we put those fallen service members' names on those vehicles, and we make it all about them. And I will tell you, it's a very moving thing, and it's just phenomenal to get to spend time with those family members and honor their loved ones. One of the things that I was thinking about in heading out here was how the military and NASCAR are similar. And really there were kind of 3 things that stuck out to me. One, and you guys have talked about it a little bit tonight, successful military leaders are really folks who excel at solving complex problems in dynamic environments, often with constrained resources. I'll tell you, race teams do that as well every week, and those who do it really well win races. Another commonality between NASCAR and the military, and again, you guys have both alluded to it, is trust. Obviously, for the military, trust is foundational in everything in every unit. In NASCAR, if you've ever watched those 5 guys who jump over the wall on pit road, while there are 36 cars coming at them at about 55 miles per hour, they willingly and on purpose jump over the wall that's protecting them in order to service that car. And they're putting their trust in those 36 guys behind the wheel. And if you've ever talked to those guys, man, there's a fine line between trust and a little bit nuts. But those guys clearly are demonstrating a great level of trust in those 36 guys behind the wheel, whose sole purpose is solely to go as fast as they possibly can. But the most important way I think that the military and NASCAR are similar is, at the end of the day, it's about the team. Always the team, the men and women on the team. The team is primary, always the team. And it's been my privilege to serve on both these teams. And yeah, I'm on the civilian team now, but I'm personally invested pretty significantly in the old uniform team as well, with my daughter, my favorite child, who's a nurse here at Brooke Army Medical Center, and my son, who's in the Air Force Special Warfare community. I want them to have things like this available to them as they continue to serve our country. William and Jeremy have talked really well about the daunting challenge that we're facing with veteran suicide. We're losing teammates. That's the bottom line, and we've got to act. For it to be effective, I think it has to get to the heart of the matter and what we know to be true about mental health in our veteran community. And this insight-driven approach that Sound Off has made is what drew NASCAR to this organization. Talking about anxiety and depression and all those things is not easy, but having that conversation with someone who shared some of the same experiences you have definitely makes a huge difference. We believe deeply at NASCAR in the work that Sound Off is doing. And we believe that our sport can have a material and substantive impact on the work and help push along the work that Sound Off is doing. Our family at NASCAR is fully committed to the success of this, and we hope that you too will share that commitment. As we look to leverage the hundreds of thousands of NASCAR fans to identify those veterans who are willing to be peer counselors, we are really talking about the power of the NASCAR fan base. We have an extremely passionate fan base. If you don't believe me, I would encourage you to come up to Race Control when we make a call that affects Chase Elliott in a negative way. We get to hear about that passion really quickly and powerfully. But they're not only passionate about our sport, but NASCAR fans are passionate about our armed forces, our military, and they're passionate about our country. And we are excited to unleash that passion in a way that's going to help Sound Off. It's an opportunity that humbles us. It's a great challenge that we look forward to and take very seriously. And we couldn't be more eager and excited to launch that platform next year. In closing, I'd just like to thank William and his team again for this opportunity to partner. We're confident that this partnership has the potential to significantly reduce veteran suicide. And in order to continue that momentum, we would just encourage you to join the race that we have, whether it's through monetary support, whether it is recruiting mentors, building partnerships, whatever. I think it's critical that all of us here continue to push forward. So really appreciate all that we're going to do together. Look forward to it, and thank you all for the opportunity to speak to you for a few minutes this evening.
Thank you. I just want to really commend NASCAR and just discuss for a moment the significance and the rarity of this relationship. Lots of organizations, corporations support veteran service organizations. Quite frankly, typically what that looks like is financially supporting that organization. And that is important, and I hope all of you will support us, and I hope that lots of corporations will support us. But it is much more challenging, and I would respectfully submit meaningful, to be putting true skin effort in the game where NASCAR is taking their team, their fans, their resources, and activating them through our organization. I think that it just takes a higher level of commitment, and I just really am deeply appreciative of that level of commitment from NASCAR. So I just want to say thank you. And speaking again about money, our last two auction items, the NASCAR team was generous enough to donate 2 ticket packages, one for Circuit of the Americas in Austin and one for the Daytona 500, which you should be getting a text about that you can bid on online, via your phone. Yeah, your phones are probably ringing right now. Okay, so let's talk about the money. First and foremost, I want to say thank you. You know, a lot of familiar faces in the room tonight and a lot of new faces. Again, SOCF has provided tremendous funding for us to be able to hire our Chief Growth Officer. Tito's remains supportive as ever. Dykema, I mean, I've got my Dykema tattoo. The support that this law firm has provided us, like literally we would not be here without it. The Mays Family Foundation, Drew McKnight, Walter Negley, my father, Richard Negley, Prine Hildebrand, the Brown Foundation, Jim Negley, Jane Elliott, HEB, the Kim Lewis, Red McCombs Foundation, Nerman Family Foundation, Aaron Thornton over there, Mark Hobbs Griffith Foundation, Mark Helm, Melik Sykes back another year, tremendously appreciate the support. Davis Cedillo in Mendoza, Leslie Clement, Ann Ash, Amy and Stacey Locke, Michael and Sheila Lynn, Anson Howard, and the balance of the Fitzsimmons clan, deeply appreciative of the support. My mother, Emery and Fred Hamilton, George and Lori Bicknell, and Karen Hickson, and please forgive me, as I'm sure I've left others off the list. I just, want to say how truly appreciative we are. And speaking of appreciative and support, Jeremy and Cindy, we're talking about you. 2 weeks ago, we were trying to fill out the auction, and Sydney said, this guy said he wants to give us a car. Would that be interesting? And after I kicked Sydney in the shin, saying, yes, that would be very interesting, we spoke to Jeremy. And so Jeremy has donated a 2007 Humvee that is sitting in the parking lot tonight, and it is quite tricked out. And we are going to be shooting a glory reel promo video here next week out at our ranch so we can get good social media traction. I'm going to ask somebody to run it off a cliff for us so we can get really good shots of it. And then we'll be taking it live online for a 1-week auction through Cars and Bids. So I really can't say thank you enough. So let's talk about the economics of this organization for a minute. 2022 was the first year that we cleared $1 million, which we were excited about. But that was short celebrated because we immediately upped our burn. So Q4 2023 moving forward, our burn is about $1.25 million a year. We really need to move to about $1.5 million to $2 million a year. But I just want to really emphasize how that money works and what I would contend is the extraordinary philanthropic ROI that you're getting out of that. That shift that occurred in January 2020 when we were asking for $1 million for an outreach budget for 1 year, what we were really seeking to do was break the correlation between fundraising and organizational programmatic efficacy. Many organizations, this is not a criticism, but many organizations in this space are precisely as effective as much money as they are able to raise. I raise this much money, I can pay for this many clinical sessions. We wanted to break that model, which we have been able to achieve because, again, I'm not paying for that Navy SEAL Green Berets clinical support, nor paying to recruit thousands, God willing, thousands of peer supporters. So that $1.5 million, as we grow and scale, does not correlate linearly grow with it. I don't ever want this organization spending more than about $2 million a year. Because if we're doing that, the question is, what fundamental element of our model have we compromised that we need to be spending that much money? So it's going up. That's a good thing, but it's not going to keep going up, is my point, as we continue to grow it. So with that, you. We're going to wrap up. I want to say thank you so much. I'm going to ask my sister Sydney to come up and twist your arm.
This is very quick. I'm Sydney Mulder, Williams' sister, on the Sound Off team. Just here to say thank you. We have received just tremendous support from this room, so thank you all for coming tonight. I'm happy to announce, I think we are $75,000 away from our match challenge. So we would love to meet that tonight. Love you guys.
You're going to get a text.
Everyone has a text on their phone, but again, just deep thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for your support and live bidding on the Hummer. I don't know. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you so much for tuning in to Sound Off Fast Forward to hear about how Sound Off is scaling our effort to support those who served on their terms. Have a wonderful Veterans Day.